Just a quick note to viewers, this was recorded several days before the actual Oscars broadcast. I'd like to congratulate Shape of Water for winning. Not that it really matters.
Yeah, so you read the title. Let me explain. I've felt this way for nearly a year now, and I've been wondering whether or not it would be worthwhile punctuating those feelings with a whole video dedicated to the topic. But whether you asked for it or not, here it is. Even if I missed the broadcast itself due to a busy work schedule, last year's Academy Awards left me feeling cold and, honestly, a little disheartened. Not because of what went to who, or who said what, or what didn't get nominated to begin with, but because of the really toxic social climate that manifested around it. To be fair, though, they did at least make me heavily consider the importance of the Oscars and similar programming in the grand scheme of things. After all, art's subjective, and even though the Oscars by themselves are a pretty solid way of finding stuff that you might have missed a given year, the idea of giving any movie something as grandiose as an award for Best Picture of the Year, it's a little off-putting. And then there's the fact that receiving that kind of award will unwittingly raise the expectations of the viewer once they finally sit down and watch the movie. I remember seeing The Hurt Locker after it won for 2009. The same year Up, Avatar, and Inglourious Basterds came out, all of which I loved.
Oh my god, this beat all those. Hurt Locker must be fucking amazing.
And then I finally sat down with my dad and watched the movie, and it was good, I guess. Not exactly the reaction you want to have to the recipient of the most prestigious award that the medium has to offer. Of course, in the years since, I'm willing to admit, having thought about the story and having read a bunch of different reviews on the film, I'm pretty sure if I were to watch it again, I would like it a lot more than I did that first time. Although, I've also seen those other movies at least 2 times apiece since then, so, what's that tell you about Hurt Locker? That's bullshit. That's not fair. I'm sure it's fine. The ceremonies themselves have also gotten a little cringier to me over the years. I don't quite know what it is, but it's probably just a matter of timing. The amount of relevance stuff like this has in such an age of affability and honesty. The monologues, the stiffness, the air of self-indulgence that's just immediately associated with this level of pageantry. No matter what the subject is, mind you.
Well, I'm glad they cut back on all the glitz. You probably noticed there was no fancy red carpet tonight. That'll send them a message.
I will say it sometimes just comes down to hosting. Billy Crystal's always a delight. Ellen DeGeneres did a pretty good job when she did it. And as polarizing as it was after the fact, I kind of like Seth MacFarlane's antics.
Ladies and gentlemen, the gay men's chorus of Los Angeles.
It's always nice to see somebody take the piss out of stuff like that, which is exactly why we need Ricky Gervais to host the fucking Oscars. Then, of course, there's the elephant in the room. Rather, the thousands of old white elephants that are the majority of the Academy. The reality of the situation is that the film industry, though it's still relatively young, came into its own at a time when diversity and equality weren't exactly high priorities for the United States. And even if we've made strides towards a brighter future as a society in general, that kind of ground level imbalance doesn't just go away overnight, or after a week, or after a month, a year, a decade, a fucking century. You get what I'm saying. Now, I'm not blind to numbers either. This is a predominantly white country, so the idea of there being mostly white people in something as reflective as popular cinema shouldn't really be that weird to anyone. The market of any industry is driven by the majority, by what rakes in the most cash. So the powers that be, as sterile and unhuman and uncreative as they might be, are naturally going to appeal to the most bankable demographic of people. And fair or not, that's white Americans. By a landslide. Still, much like another collective of influential folks in this country, the proportions and overall quality of racial representation needs a lot of tweaking before it's ultimately going to be fair in the eyes of the public, and the age and gender gaps of who's got a seat at the table is equally memey. So just to reiterate, I'm for those tweaks. Some of my favorite films in the last decade have done a phenomenal job of changing up who gets to shine in lead roles, the best of them also serving as a loving and respectful tribute to the stories that came before them. This kind of bridge is key to shaping a future that encourages storytelling through a wider range of lenses and increasing the amount of people who are willing to give those stories a chance. And seeing it happen is really, really exciting to me. How was that? Satisfied? I sure hope so. It's the most preemptive damage control I've ever done in anything I've ever made. So if y'all don't mind, I'm gonna get a little less nice. Let's move on to the next logical topic. the Super Bowl. There isn't any other event on Earth that divides the United States so vigorously and vocally while having absolutely no logical reason to do so. I mean, fuck, even the election, for all of its chest puffing and dick swinging, at least comes from an understandable place of history and sociology, you know? Not this shit, no. It's just, you either like these guys, or you like these guys, or you don't even like those. You like some other guys who wear some other color and have some other stupid animal or stereotype on their helmet. Once you're set on something, just fucking play ball. They don't even need to live in your state or city. And come every winter of every new year, the conversation is inescapable. Who do you want to win? Yeah, we're itching to snatch that there trophy. Nah, you guys barely made it in. They don't stand a chance.
Them boys are gonna get their shit pushed in.
I mean, I had them both. I don't really want either of them to win, but I guess if I had a gun against my head, I'd go with these guys. You guys suck and don't deserve to win. Yeah, we have the best QB of the year and don't deserve to win. Get the fuck out of here with that noise.
Your defensive line is still shit. That ain't gonna be enough.
Are we just gonna ignore the fact that the tight end is a xenophobic piece of shit? Man, fuck off.
Yeah, why you gotta make it weird?
This is why no one likes you or your stupid team. Yeah, maybe they would have made the cut if their fans weren't a bunch of fucking pussies. I don't know, man. They still would have beat you guys if they made it in. Nah, they wouldn't. Yeah, they would. Fuck you. Fuck you too, man. As you can probably guess, I don't football. I've never been the most sports-minded person. I was only involved when I played Little League, then golf lessons, then basketball in a local Christian league, but even then, when I was legitimately trying, it was never enough to reach any level of greatness. My personality type just doesn't mesh with the milieu of drills and coaching and exhaustion and yelling. So much yelling. So I eventually settled on the arts, where subjectivity and introversion and the fire within one's soul is the bedrock for everything you commit your time and energy to. Sure, there's a level of academia and competitiveness in certain subsets of the art world, which I saw playing clarinet in band for nearly 10 years, but it's never the be-all end-all of whether or not you can enjoy something or just get lost in the meaning behind it. There are reviews, there are lists, there are awards, but those are never enough to offset the experience you can have if you just sit down and take a piece of work, whether it's a movie or a book or a piece of music, on its own terms. I gravitate towards the screen, a means of crafting entire worlds that, no matter how mundane or exotic they might be to the viewer, have the potential to magnify the truths of the world we live in. Movies can offer a perspective we'd otherwise be unable to attain. They can elicit every conceivable response or emotion out of you in an infinite number of ways. They can bring people together to have a communal experience that's philosophically stimulating or just plain fun. And I honestly believe they have the power to create a richer, more empathetic place to live in. And with events like the Oscars, even if there will inevitably be disagreements on what's truly the best actor or actress or score or production of the year, there is an opportunity to acknowledge what's stuck out in the eyes of the industry in a given year, highlighting work that may have slipped under people's radars despite being worth a watch. All in an environment that was free of the posturing and hollow us and them mentality that turns me off so much about sports and competitiveness. At least that's what I wanted to believe. See anything good lately? Oh man, I love La La Land. The story is timeless, the chemistry is great, the acting is really solid, the use of color and motion is just really inspired. I don't know, man, I like it. I like it a lot, although I also watched it at a time when I really needed it, because I had just wrapped on my first short film, and, that was great and everything, but once it was over and I realized I was stuck exactly where I was before I made it, I got kind of depressed and a little under the weather. But this movie, there's so much passion and love and joy behind it. And it just really resonated with me as a creative. What'd you think of Moonlight? Sorry, what? You saw La La Land, but what'd you think of Moonlight? Oh, I didn't get around to it. I wanted to see it. I heard it was really good. It was definitely second or third on my list, but it wasn't playing anywhere around me, sadly. I mean, there are some art house theaters that are a 30-minute drive away. That's not very far. True, but I'm not always going to feel like driving that far, and I only have so much money to spend on seeing movies in theaters. Still had plenty of time and money to see La La Land, though, didn't you? Well, that was a little higher on my list because, I love Whiplash, which was also done by Damien, and, me, Ryan Gosling's my everything. Wouldn't it be better to support smaller films with unknown people and talk about subjects that don't get covered enough in the mainstream media? I mean, probably. I'm going to watch it, and once I do, if it's really good, I'll hype it up when I talk to people about it, and I might give it some money. Yeah, just not theater money. Look, I'm going to watch it, all right? Chill. Jeez. Then we can talk about it all you want. I'm game. But, I am curious. What'd you think of La La Land? Did you like it? Did you hate it? I'm fine with either. I'm just curious to know what you... I didn't watch it. You didn't? I'm not into those kinds of movies. What kind of movies? Those milquetoast Oscar bait movies, the ones that are just made to, win awards. I don't know, they're really bland to me. Look, I get what you're saying. A lot of stuff that gets nominated is very samey, but I can tell you right now, one due to another, this is actually like really good. It's great you liked it. It's just played, and I don't really want to give my money to something I know I'm probably not going to like. Plus, I made more than enough money, so it's not like, they need mine. I mean, yeah, but I really liked it. It really helped me out when I wasn't feeling that great. You can tell I'm a little salty here. Maybe a little too much. But like I said, I've been keeping this shit packed away, tucked deep inside me, for almost a year. So pardon my butthurt, pardon my brashness. I'm gonna vent. There's a lot to unpack with this particular pair of movies, which is only a pair because, for whatever reason, some people made them that for bullshit arbitrary reasons about this time last year. On one hand, you have the timely, socially relevant portrait of an African-American boy grappling with his own identity, told in a dreamlike style that challenges both social norms and the norms of the craft. On the other hand, you have a love story set to a life in the arts in a landscape that's cutthroat and merciless despite its pleasant colors and catchy music, while paying homage to the works that have inspired generations of creators. Till just the other day, I hadn't seen La La Land since my second time going to see it in theaters because I loved it so much the first time, and I hadn't even touched Moonlight, even though it's been in my prime streaming queue forever now. And believe me, I would have seen it much, much sooner if I didn't have a Pavlovian relationship with these goddamn movies. A really unhealthy complex where I'd get the idea in my head, oh, I'm gonna sit down and watch one of these movies because they're really, really good. Only for my mind to be sent right back to winter of 2017, reading in all the wokesters taking delight in an entire production team's misfortune because their film was not only better, but morally superior.
Man, Hollywood needs to stop sucking its own dick. The only reason this shit got nominated in the first place was because it was about movies. Everyone knows that movies about movies aren't actually good. Just Hollywood jacking off. There's not one. Not one good movie. Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it or nothing, but I don't have to. You see one white bread movie, you seen them. What? It didn't win? It didn't win? Fuck you! What, Damien, you gonna cry? You gonna cry a little bitch boy? Oh, your movie didn't win. Wah. No, victory. You lost. Bitch.
You gotta suck a dick, La La Land. No one likes you anyway. Just a bunch of normies who don't truly understand and appreciate art like I do. I have a degree. I'm the real article. Yeah, that hurt, Emma. That hurt. Karma. It's karma. It's karma for taking that role. Quarter Chinese, quarter Hawaiian, half something else, a real person, and you don't have any of that in your bloodstream. Fuck Emma Stone and her by the numbers performance and her anime face. Meryl Streep should have won. Sure, she's got plenty of wins and even more nominations. Sure, there's plenty of young, non-white faces that could really use a big break like an Oscar or even just a nomination, but no. She's just the epitome of perfection. She's so inspiring, so diverse in her roles. I can't wait. I cannot wait to find out what empowered British lady she plays next year. I'm getting goosebumps just speculating about it. Oh, so forward-thinking, so progressive, to give the same honor to the same person over and over again. The leads weren't even black. How can a movie about jazz just follow a bunch of white people? Fuck you, Damien, and your white boy fetish for a genre that's not even yours. La La Land was just made to win awards. Nothing else. Just self-indulgent Hollywood bullshit. Moonlight, though. That's a victory for the people. A victory for actual human beings who have a story to tell. A victory to movies with a point. See, I like that one. I actually agree with that one the most because let's look at the trailers for La La Land. You got this artsy-fartsy, dreamlike bullshit with a bunch of honky-ass rich people who've already gotten enough time in the limelight. You can tell by the imagery that this is the kind of movie that just insists on itself. Oh, and look at that. Look at those. Give us Oscars. Give us Oscars. Look at our laurels. Look how cynically and corporately beautiful and rich and passionate the images and emotions are in these faces. We're manipulating you to give us recognition for our work towards the very clear goal of a statue. Now, let's look at Moonlight. Totally different thing. Look at all this craftsmanship that was made on planet Earth with the rest of us. Listen to the folky human aesthetics of that slow, foreboding classical music with almost no dialogue whatsoever underneath. Because nothing says for the soul and not at all Oscar baity like classical music. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is that a laurel? Is that a fucking laurel? Oh yeah. It looks like it did pretty well at all those other festival circuits that a bunch of other big Oscar contenders also happen to make their rounds through before, winter of the new year. It's almost as if there's different variations of the very concept of Oscar bait that should be accounted for when discussing different movies. Sure, a bunch of attractive white people doing charming things over and over again in a style that is artful and charming. That's one type of Oscar bait. You've got another type of Oscar bait where it's mostly British people in a period setting, talking in accents, some of those people talking in accents that aren't technically theirs. Daniel Day. Much love, post-retirement. But then there's the not that touched upon third kind that I've noticed. That being the minority portrait. I mean, yeah, they're about minorities and their struggles, and we need that. But, none of those are a little samey to you people? Not even a little bit? I mean, Hidden Figures was great. I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The Help. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But the aesthetics and direction and use of music and the way it was edited, they're really fucking similar. In fact, take away the fact that it's about, black people and their adversity, and the style is almost identical to the other Oscar bait type movies. I'm done being sassy for now. Here's the big question, though. What did I think of Moonlight? I loved it. I honestly think it deserved its win. It gave me a perspective from a viewpoint that I just can't relate to for the most part. Like, sure, I can relate to being an outsider sometimes. I can relate to not having the articulateness to share my feelings or analyze my neuroses, but I'm not a poor black dude with something inside of him that he cannot share with his immediate surroundings. And the way it focuses on that is just it's so subtle, it's so tasteful, and it's honest. It never tries to hammer home the fact that it's right. Like, it lets its own truth speak for itself, and it relies on the choices from the director and the performers to convey that shit to you without having to just hammer it home. Like, it treats the viewer with respect. And I honestly think if people who are immediately turned off to this kind of story, assuming you already know the content of the story, if they gave it a chance, they might get that more. It might, change the way they look at certain things in society, about class, about race, about, your own personal identity. It's great. There isn't a single person I wouldn't recommend that movie to. I'll probably watch this more, though, because I'm an artist, in quotations. I love musicals, and I honestly think this is a great bridge for people who don't like that old-fashioned type of storytelling to, experience that in a more contemporary setting and maybe give that other shit a try. And despite all the memes about jazz and, only certain people being allowed to partake in that, I think it treats it with enough respect that it's not a problem, at least for me. In fact, I can confirm at least one instance personally where one of my buds watched this movie, and one of the very first things we agreed upon after watching it was that we wanted to check out more jazz, because we like jazz. We like that old shit. We had already listened to a lot of John Coltrane together. It kind of got the ball rolling to check out, Miles Davis, and then do the basic bitch research on Wikipedia of where jazz started to get like a full understanding of where it came from outside of the context of, a schmaltzy feel-good art film. I'll watch this more, but Moonlight's better. It's a better movie the same way Taxi Driver might be a better movie than Rocky, or maybe that Pulp Fiction is better than Forrest Gump, or hell, even Up might be technically better than The Hurt Locker. But it all comes down to preference and your own unique perspective. Here's my final point. You don't need to use an award ceremony as some kind of litmus test. You don't need to show how woke you are just because you liked the right movie. and fuck the other guys, except no, fuck that. We have sports for that. We have the Super Bowl for that, where you can just like jerk off and
Be part of something that's bigger than yourself.
or whatever the fuck the go-to meme is for that, even though it's just an excuse for people to yell at each other in my experience. And the ultimate irony is that Barry Jenkins and Damien Chazelle are peers, are friendly, are appreciative of each other's work. Barry Jenkins in particular is like a model citizen as far as I'm concerned. Here's a guy with a vision. Here's a guy with a very subtle and meaningful way of telling a story, who's got all this stuff going for him, and yet when the time comes for him to be respectful, he delivers.
You know, there was a time when I thought this movie was impossible because I couldn't bring it to fruition. I couldn't bring myself to tell another story. And so everybody behind me on the stage said, no, that is not acceptable. So I just want to thank everybody up here behind me, everybody out there in that room, because we didn't do this. You guys chose us. Thank you for the choice. I appreciate it.
And yeah, of course, artists are going to be like that way amongst themselves, but we could learn from that. We could honestly learn a thing or two from people who just take everything on its own terms instead of like constantly comparing them to each other like it's a goddamn boxing match. But look, I know my people. I know my age group. I know we get flustered with the world around us. And sometimes that comes out in really negative, projection-y type ways. And I can't be too mad at y'all because I know what's got you shook. I know why you hurt. I know why you lash out. We lost the election. We lost, guys. And it's indicative of a nation with class problems, with racial biases, and all kinds of other like sociological ignorance that I'm not even gonna try to sum up right now. So you have all this bad shit going on, and what do you do? Like, what's the first big thing after such an occurrence that could be reflective of the state of things that you could put all your aggression and anger towards? Oh, this award show. This has to be to my liking. Couldn't win that other thing. I can win this thing. Because it's trivial. But look, it's been a year since all that shit happened. Maybe you don't even have these feelings anymore. And frankly, now that I've watched both of these movies, I'm glad I can just like close that chapter on my life in terms of people not chilling out long enough to just admit when shit's good instead of just saying, no, this is good, therefore that can't be good. Water under the bridge. For most of you, because as much of a olive branch this video is supposed to be in the end, I've still got a mighty big bone to pick with one particular group of people in regards to those who watched La La Land, a group of people who have actually been intertwined with my life, particularly earlier in my life, namely high school, but a section of people who I have more in common with than, I might admit sometimes. And they're wrong. But I'll get to that in time. In time. For now, though, yeah. Congrats to, the Get Out people. Congrats to Greta Gerwig for all the major buzz she's getting as a female filmmaker. Like, that's all great. But for the time being, I'm just not gonna get invested in that shit. I think the more important thing to do is to find shit that I know is good and take it on its own terms. Like Moonlight. Well, peace, guys.
It's going to be an exciting night. Anything can happen. So many different possibilities. Possibility number one, 12 Years a Slave wins Best Picture. Possibility number two, you're all racists.